Thank you for tuning in. Welcome to our second season of Hypercast. This is Hypercast number 10, and we are absolutely thrilled to have our friends Alex and Allyson Grey join us here for the beginning of this second season.
Thank you for joining us.
Hi, you guys.
It's been too long.
Really.
I just want to thank you so much for inviting us to be with you. It's just such an awesome opportunity that you've created so that we can meet up. Four old friends that have seen and known each other for a long time and loved each other and watched each other unfolding in our lives. So it's great to see you guys.
Yeah.
Nice to see you too.
Yeah, last time we got to hang out with these guys was at the Paradise Artist Retreat. That was a couple years ago. And man, so much has happened since then. For you guys especially, everything you've got going on. And there's lots of stuff happening in the whole tattoo world right now that's just mind-boggling, which we'd like to, talk about a little bit later on. But where would you like to begin?
Well, I think we should begin, if you guys don't mind. I know you talk about it a lot, but for the audience, if you could define visionary art and what it is so people listening can understand part of the message behind your work, both of your work, and how it pertains to tattooing.
We've been enjoying your feeds on Instagram. And when you talk about visionary art, that's kind of where a lot of the forefront of visionary art is right now. And I think that the communities that are forming today are broader and more world-based. And the visionary art community, it's kind of like now we recognize it's really a movement that's worldwide. And when we say visionary art, the most recent, perhaps the most powerful incarnation of this movement in art, because I think it started in the caves, like 30,000 years ago, So it depends on which phase of visionary art we're talking about. But it's basically a portrayal of the inner visionary dimension, the divine imagination, as William Blake called it. And the people who have now taken psychedelics, the sacramental shamanic plants that allow us to see into the visionary dimensions, these are the dimensions that were always portrayed in the heavens and hells of all the world religions. And so these same visionary worlds, now anyone with the right connections can tap into and verify for themselves the existence of an infinite inner world. And that once one has gone through the psychedelic experience, you know the power and importance of the visionary experience. And once you have had a mystical visionary experience, then you've had God contact. Now, it's like Steve Jobs said, it's just one of the most important experiences of a person's life. It's right up there with having a family and meeting your beloved and everything, because it has to do with your discovering your spiritual center. And so the psychedelics have provided a unique and repeatable means to enter into the visionary domain. And now artists who for decades have been experiencing these dimensions and they have been classically trained to represent realistic kind of phenomena, are now applying those skills of draftsmanship and the understanding of form and surface and translucency and transparency and all these kind of trained skills are going into attempting to portray the multidimensional, interdimensional experience of the visionary domain. So you're with visionary art as a painting or two-dimensional form, then you're trying to compress all those dimensions into a kind of a symbol, more or less, that points back to that infinite domain within. And it's surprising that if you're able to capture a little bit of the color, the intensity of the color, the infinite kind of networks of interconnectedness and the kind of strange beings that one may encounter, the jewel-like surfaces and patterns that seem to shift and things. If one is able to evoke that kind of luminescent dimension, sacred geometry and all, then the soul responds. And across the planet, people who have had those experiences respond to visionary art. And that's why I think visionary art today is a new kind of sacred art. And it's why some people would care enough to tattoo some of this imagery onto their bodies as well, because it's a sacred thing, pure and simple.
Okay.
I agree with that 100%. And I think people want to feel like they belong to something that has significance and meaning. And when they have tattoos that represent these ideas, it's like a modern tribe. You know, it's like a tribal mark, but it's saying this is what I believe in, this is what I want to associate with, and they want other people to know these are my colors. You know, like I just feel like, and that's another reason why your imagery is so popular as a tattoo, because people are able to use those images to, you know, have their calling card of what they relate to and what tribe they want to be part of.
You see someone with a tattoo of a, you know, one of your paintings or of a flower of life or some other sacred geometry, and you kind of know that you could easily have certain kinds of conversations with them and they'll be all into it. You know what I mean?
I think it's a modern tribal calling card, though, to say this is what I believe, this is what I want to be associated with, and these are my people. And so they like your art and they like other people's art that are associated with that type of imagery. And then with Allyson, the patterning that she does, I'm seeing a lot of that in tattooing right now, sacred geometry and just patterns, like not imagery that's like figurative, but just more of these repetitious patterns that are really hypnotic and visual and psychedelic and visionary. And I mean, there's a huge explosion in tattooing with that aesthetic, which we'll get into later.
Geometric abstraction has really taken off in the last couple of years, and
then there's the other abstractionists. There's, you know, Oliver Vernon and Mars One and Damon Sewell and people who are, you know, of the visionary tribe and totally abstract. And I love seeing what they're doing. I love seeing that movement, that part of the movement growing. Because we all know that in the psychedelic experience, if that's where we're inspired, that's where I have been inspired, you see patterns. Sometimes indescribable patterns, patterns that you can't come back actually, you know, like referencing them to reality, like you can say with the image of the Himalayas or something like that behind you in meditation. I mean, there's patterns that are just there and they're unexplainable. So I think that, and you sent some images of some of these beautiful lacy patterns that people are wearing now in their tattoos.
There's also like a literal continuity in nature when you look at patterns and sacred geometry, and you look at how soap bubbles and the math in a flower and the core of its center. So there's this underlying current of realism, and then there's a connection that you might have in an altered state or whatever, you know, references that you have to make you enjoy patterns that might be beyond what you see on the surface. But there's a continuity in that, and I think people enjoy that because they can see it and relate to it in another realm as well. It's like there's like an honest truth, but then there's also this experience that you might have to relate to that truth. And I feel like that's really pure.
I have a friend, a collector, who has my art.
Oh, wow.
I'd love to see it.
It's fast. I mean, I'm very touched, you know.
We'll have
I've seen
copies.
several actually. It,
Uh,
yeah, it's
it would look skin.
You're ahead of your time, Ellison. Just give it a few more years, and you never know what can happen.
Listen, I'm committed. You haven't to worry in the world. I am completely committed and devoted to what I'm doing, which I do every day, every single day.
I don't doubt it.
More and more optical twang with each generation of paintings that you do. So I remember hearing this interesting quote from M.C. Escher. Now, he did these abstractions, but he always had lizards and things in them. And he felt that people just wouldn't be able to relate otherwise, that otherwise they would look at it and see a checkerboard or something. And which is interesting because now tattoo collectors are starting to really embrace the abstract. Of course, that's almost all of what I do these days. And there's a lot of other artists, like the geometry artists that we'll be looking at later on. But it's interesting because you do get into a totally different use of the imagination when you get away from literal depictions.
Oh yeah, and I always felt that your kind of organic abstractions were informed by nature, but they were like nature on another planet or something, or in an alternate dimension, plants look like this, and they have a light inside of them, and so. Uh, those places which look very familiar to certain kind of journeys and even the people of Avatar might have looked at your mind trees, I would say, Guy. And then Michelle, yours has a similar luminosity, but it has another kind of nature weave that calls in more representations, but it also goes into the abstraction. I love the interplay and the similarities and differences in both you guys' work, because I always feel like Allyson and I are painting light. Our subject is light. It comes out
Right.
as people. In hers, it's grids of light and color, and so, but it's the same subject essentially of spiritual light, really.
Coming through different filters.
Well, there's a reason we went on our honeymoon to your class. It was the perfect place for us to be before we. And I wasn't even really a tattooist then, so it seems really appropriate, and I relate to that. So thank you for the high compliment.
That was right around when she started, actually.
Yeah, light is energy, and energy is like the underlying current of everything. So it seems really appropriate.
So Alex, your work is tattooed on probably thousands of people now, large and small. I mean, every day I open my Instagram feed and I'll see works in progress, and not just by James Kern anymore, although he's still really tearing them up. Yeah, but we're seeing tons. And what do you think this says about modern culture?
Wow. Well, here's my fantasy. That beyond just the people who connect with my work via tool, which are thousands probably.
I think more than that.
Many more than that. But
yeah,
in terms of tattoos, that there's a connection like what we were talking about, that there's an association of my work probably with a sacramental journey that some people took that was very meaningful to them, and maybe the best reference point they had at the time was some of my work, and maybe some of my work resonated with their experience deeply. I've had people tell me that, and for me that would be an excuse, to put a lasting mark, so that you would embed that memory, because if it's a summary of an actual experience, a visionary experience that you had, and if it summarizes that, then you've got an emblem. You've just brought heaven to earth. You've just attached a wing onto, or a portal back into that soul space, you know. So I always felt like that's what your work does, because it twists people's expectations of skin, and it says, in another dimension, skin looks like this, you know.
Or in another dimension, my mind looks like this.
Visionary tattooing.
Yeah.
It's absolutely visionary tattooing. It birthed kind of the psychedelic revolution of tattooing, really.
I have two things I'd like to add to this. Is I have a client who is a self-declared atheist, and she has a scan on her iPhone of one of your paintings because she resonates with it. And I think is it theologue when the figure is meditating in the cosmic space of grid lines?
The mountains, the Himalayas behind them.
So I think that's really interesting that there's like this... that your work is acceptable enough to someone who may be a non-believer to possibly believe with the right context, even without having reference of an altered state, because there's a truth in that. And secondly, the Sacred Mirrors paintings, where we see that we're all the same regardless of our skin color, that's true. So when you do those paintings and people see that, even if they're not in an altered state, they see the truth in that. And I think that's universal, and another reason why your work is so popular. So I'm just putting that out there because we're talking about visionary culture and maybe why so many people get your imagery tattooed on them, why it's popular and why it's attractive and why they relate to it.
There may be no other artist in history whose work has been tattooed on so many people.
I'm shocked by it, in a cool way, of course, but yeah.
I'd say Giger. You know...
Giger has been an enormous influence, and he's caused a lot of artists to explore Giger-like languages, but actual literal translations of his work, there are a few, and they're amazing, but that's not what people are looking for when they're getting your work tattooed. Now, remember what Michelle was saying earlier about...
A tribal calling card.
A tribal calling card. Yeah, there's another dimension to it also. You're also getting this daily affirmation, especially if it's somewhat placed like on your forearm where you can see it every day. It's a reminder, oh yes, I went there, I experienced that, I feel that, or I resonate with that.
I belong.
Yeah.
It's really a nice feeling when the world can feel so lonely at times to have the sense of tribal community, and sometimes tattoos can be affirmations of that, which is why they're so powerful.
And if you've ever had a brief glimmering moment of feeling part of something larger or a type of belonging that you hadn't felt before or whatever, getting that tattooed on you so you don't forget it could be the thing that helps pull you through your tough times and that sort of thing. And so it's not just a calling card, it's also an affirmation.
Mm-hmm, absolutely, yeah.
Well, you know, it's very hard for one to think of creating that kind of affirmation with simply a painting, but by the embedding of the image onto the skin, it is the painting left an impression, and then the kind of the body, mind, soul complex gets etched with that affirmation, whatever the piece represents for them. And I can see how there's a ceremonial aspect to it, and an initiatory aspect to it too. Usually, I think those things are done after some kind of probably dramatic event in their lives. You know, I moved out, or I broke up with someone, but I still believe in love.
Yeah. Or
I fell in love, or I'm committed to my practice, or I believe in science. Or, you know, it may be any number of affirmations that kind of work. But I'm getting a sense of it now that, you know, the experiences that we have and that are shared by so many people, that you know, I just happen to have been among the early describers, you know, of this dimension with that kind of intention, you know. And I think it's an endless subject that artists will forever mine once we get past our silly illegal entanglements, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
But I think that, you know, I think that it's going to be one of the great, you know, kind of,
Transformers.
yeah, the great transformers of human consciousness, because you don't need to have a linguistic kind of explanation if it's a deep enough symbolic transmission, if it's universal enough statement, you know.
Well, I think people are brave warriors who get the imagery on their bodies that they do that transcribe that mission and statement, and they reaffirm it by explaining it. So, you know, that's really brave for people who get more esoteric, quote unquote, visionary aesthetics tattooed on them. I think just you have to explain your tattoo sometimes when people say, "Oh, what's that about?" or "What does that mean?" or, you know, I mean, you're a messenger.
And you're committing yourself.
And you believe in it, and that's huge because that's a commitment to your aesthetic and your identity for the rest of your life. Everyone has a choice with what they relate to and what they get tattooed on them, and the people who identify with a more visionary aesthetic, it's a big step to wear that permanently and then explain it, you know, and relate to it, and it's a huge commitment, and I feel that's really significant, and you know, I'm honored by anyone who wants to get tattooed by me and wear imagery like that, and similar to Guy, and similar to the work that people collect from Alex, and also some of the pieces that people have gotten from Allyson. You know, just to believe in that imagery and want to wear it forever is a huge compliment, and it's also a huge commitment. You know.
Well, I mean, getting a Cosmic Christ tattoo is kind of like getting a Jesus tattoo. You know, and from that point on, you are going to be showing it to people, and you're going to probably have to explain it, and to go into it knowing that ahead of time, because most people who get tattooed know that it's a commitment they gladly take on.
Right, people want to believe in something, and they identify with it. I think that's huge.
So hey, we wanted to talk a little bit about community.
Yeah.
How is community important in the arts, and particularly in visionary culture?
Oh, we have a community. It's called Cosm. Anyway, it's awesome. I don't know, what can we say about it? It's very important, and many artists are getting together, and we've had events every weekend. We had a big chocolate party last night with David Wolf, and a lot of people, and music, and eating good, and, you know, just, I don't know, not being alone, feeling like you're part of something, feeling like you're part of something beautiful, that you're making a difference in your local world that is uplifting.
I think that the path of art has been a source of the contemplation of meaning and the contemplation of beauty in culture. So as the pursuit of beauty and the path of art has inspired us throughout history, this is one of the things that community has bonded around, art. And art has been a servant of the soul, and it has also now, as you pointed out, for people who connected through with tattooing and stuff, there's plenty of other people who connected with this art just and didn't get it tattooed onto their bodies and things, but they had a resonance with us in relationship to our mission to get the artwork and visionary art in general enshrined in a sacred space. And so this has been a mission that is shared by the Cosm community. So communities kind of form around subjects and around issues and missions in the world. So the nonprofits are filled with communities that are inspired to help the world in particular ways. And the creative arts, I think, are part of the wave of inspiration that can help uplift humanity. And so they have a unique place as a kind of soul restorative for people who are part of a creative community, because you may not be making money at your artwork, but you at least want some kind of soul nutrition from doing it. And I think there automatically is. You gain something just by making something, because you've left a permanent thing. It's a transmission from your soul onto a surface. And that's a magical thing. And the creative arts are always doing that. But the thing that we realize as a creative community is that everything's creative, where our thoughts are creations, the way that we author the story of our lives, we're the author, so most of our decisions are aesthetic. It's about what we feel like, in our daily lives and things. So the arts can become a lens for community. And you created community around also creation and around art, not only tattooing, but the visual art that the tattoo artists, who are just artists really, and they do tattooing and they do pictures. So anyway, I feel the arts are uniquely positioned to uplift communities, and they're doing it. And Cosmos,
a node in the network of communities. Cosm is where we live, but there's everywhere we go in the world there are communities of visionary artists, and many people who of those, I would say a Venn diagram of those who adore tattooing and love love the beautiful art of body modification, and so many of our creative friends do. So anyway, we all cheers to that.
Self-expression.
Yeah. Why do you think it's so important to artists to get feedback from people who see their art?
Oh, well, I think it has to do with the four quadrants. The four quadrants is like a Ken Wilber configuration that structures the way the world works. And in the first quadrant, it's a quadrant. In the first quadrant, it happens in your head. It's the place where thoughts happen inside the individual. In the second quadrant, it's the place where the individual makes manifest their creativity. They make art, they do it out in the world, and they have it in their studio, and there it is. So it's out in the world. The third quadrant is the out in the world of the community. So it's like where your art ends up, like in a gallery or on the internet, or in a cafe somewhere, so, or in a collector's home. So it's in community. But the fourth quadrant is where you get feedback. It's where the community's inner life feeds back. You get reviews, you get likes. People wear your t-shirt, they buy your products. It's like, I'm feeding back to you. And in that four quadrant sort of cycle, if you don't get past one quadrant, there's an obstacle feeling. There's a feeling of an obstacle. Whatever.
I love those four quadrants because they're really representative of different ambitions and why it matters to get feedback. Why you can't live in a cave and only talk to yourself. It's nice to have community and have people responding to what you do. It's like, sort of, in some ways, it validates you.
If you did a show in a gallery and nobody reviews it and nobody says anything about it and nobody writes anything in your guest book, you feel a sense of, incompletion.
Yeah.
if you have it in your head but you can't get it out on the paper, you feel a sense of incompletion. So it's a full cycle. And as Alex often reminds everyone, that at the fourth quadrant, when people are responding to it by wearing your t-shirt or buying your poster, other people get ideas. They see your work and they get ideas. And then their work springs from that. And it continues that cycle. They see it. They thought of something like your work and then they got it out.
That's one of the amazing things about social networking. We see an immediate response to things we put out there. Somebody puts out a new idea, a bunch of other artists are going to be putting their spin on it within the next day sometimes.
One thing we talk a lot about on other Hypercasts is that no matter how people are influenced by you, that they're not you, because it's going through the you filter. And only you can resonate with those elements that make your work so unique. So even if you are influencing others, you are so, not to say, that you are, you're creating a legacy and other people will follow, but your own contribution is unique in itself. And I think that's important too, because that holds its own.
It can be fun though to see an idea that you have spent time with getting filtered to another artist.
That it's always a filter through that person and what they're experiencing. And I'm going to always say that everyone's art is all self-portraits. It's just a reflection of the artist. No matter what the subject matter is, it's still coming from that artist. And it's really, I feel like almost all art is a self-portrait. I don't know how you guys feel about that, but it's something Guy and I talk a lot about. We have time to.
Well, it's kind of what I think is part of the subject of my work is the question of the nature of the self and things. And so that subject is entangled with each one. And I do believe that it's part of the magic of what art is. It's kind of where a self has been entangled in matter and left a soul impression, and so that entanglement is really the what outlasts the artist, and is a kind of a wonderful touchstone. Then, we look at artists from centuries past and still, like Munch or something, the cry, the scream, and we see an emblem, kind of an icon that it's just, you say it and you understand what that means. It's a shorthand for a sense, a soul sense. And so I think communities bond in relation to their sort of group soul or soul sense, and they affirm it between each other. And the importance of community for artist feedback, I think, is, as you explained, it's the revolution of the quadrants. It's the evolving of consciousness, because the condition, if an artwork has been absorbed into the culture to a certain extent, then it will give rise to something based on it or an offshoot of it, and that becomes the next phase of evolution, which has transcended but included your contribution. And so you become part of the historic spiral. And it's what art does, I think. It evolves consciousness.
That's beautiful. Very beautiful.
So before we start asking, getting the audience questions, we had one more thing we wanted to touch on. How is the Entheon project going?
I've seen video of bricks being laid.
And we're curious to know how the visionary community has been a part of that.
Yeah.
I think it's remarkable that just from the time that we've started building, we've had almost a parade of some of the greatest visionary artists, except for yourselves.
We're getting you out there.
You'll be out soon. Yeah, but during this process, maybe we'll see you guys, and it'll probably be 2 years, but we've, Amanda Sage and Android was just out. We've had Randall Roberts and
Aloria and David, Aloria Weaver and David Heskin and
Chris Dyer,
Michael Devine, Mara Holden. We've had so many visionaries, and Zavi and Mark Ensign just did a big piece. And so we've been having a lot of visionary artists coming, muraling the Mushroom Cafe, and making contributions on the land of sculpture. We have some new sculpture on the land. So the progress of making this property more beautiful and creative, but Entheon itself is being built right now. They were working Saturday, not Sunday. But they were working on the wall. They're starting to build up the block walls. So it's just beginning. The foundation pouring was very exciting for us. It looks really nitty-gritty, but it's the end of a 4-year process of working with the town and working with the bank and trying to get this thing started. And it just started a little late in the winter, so we may have to take a hiatus, and who knows. But right now they're still above freezing and they're still laying blocks. So we'll see how far we get this winter. Then we may start again in April. We have a lot going on there at Cosm with building anyway. We have some new housing, and we want to create a classroom. So we have a lot of building to do interior if we have to stop the Entheon project for a couple months. But it's ongoing. We've got everything we need to at least create the box and install the collection and the Narthex Gallery, which is going to be the gallery of our visionary art tribe, the best of the originals that people are willing to loan for long, like 6 months to a year, to be in the Narthex Gallery. There'll be, a selection of art, and it'll be rotating on a longer term basis. We're not going to have monthly or anything like that. We're going to have year-long or 6-month rotations of some of our favorite invitational artists and their best work. I mean, I really want to see the originals. I want people to be able to look at the actual paintings, the ones that we keep seeing in slides and posters and giclée prints. Let's pull them out of the studios and at least show them and then return them safely, because a lot of people do want to save these most incredible works, but I think they're worth bringing them out of hiding and letting them be in the Narthex. And then the Sacred Mirrors will be there, and I have some work there, and we'll have a lot of celebrating. But that's not for another year to 18 months, I think, for the installation. And then there's building, then there's the sculptures.
That's really not a lot of time, really, in the
if it's only a couple of years, that's pretty fast.
Yeah.
No, it's going to be incredible, and we're going to raise the money for the sculptures now because we have our bank loan for the basic form and the installation, but the sculptures are going to be in another 1.5 million.
Wow.
So we're in the progress right now of looking at, putting our campaign together, getting our friends to come out and help us put these sculptures on. First, do one facade and just see how it looks. And we know where we're going to do it. We know how to do it. We're working with people that print out 20 foot by 8 foot by 8 foot foam, and then you make a cast of it. It's ornamental concrete, but it's printed out, 3D printout. Wow. And then we make the mold of that foam. We make a mold, and then we make glass reinforced cast concrete shell inside of that mold, and then you take the shell out. It's concrete, which is the same material that the Pantheon is made of. The Pantheon dome is concrete. So it's an ancient material brought up to date with with fiberglass reinforcement, and then it'll last 1,000 years.
Wow.
And we're gonna hang it onto the building.
That sounds
with
beautiful.
an armature. Yeah, we have engineers. I mean, we had the building engineered, but now we have the engineers working just on the sculptures because they got to figure out to make them hang just right so they're all perfect.
The building itself is like 125 years old or something, right?
Well, it's 1882 carriage house. It's,
Wow.
you know, I tell you, it's a brick shell right now. It looks like a bombed out fortress. We took the roof off. Most of the floors are coming out. And it'll be a 3-story on one side, 2-story on the back, 3-story in the front, with an elevator. And, you know, it's going to be, you know, walk in through the Narthex Gallery, come in to the gift and print area. There'll be videos. It'll be wonderful. It'll be a wonderful community, powerful center.
I think people will make a pilgrimage to go. Would you consider this an art installation, or what? How would you define it?
Yes, I do.
An art installation
I
at
call
a
it a work
temple?
social sculpture.
Social sculpture.
Yeah.
That's
And
great.
It's I think it'll be a sanctuary of some kind, you know, and it's shaping up. We're making we made a kind of a small 3D printout, which is maybe 30 inches
I think
by
it's 40 inches across the
or 40
front.
inches across. And so we're, you know, starting to see some of the elements in a more overall sense, and what trouble we might run into and what lighting we might want to work with and stuff. So it's very exciting to be anticipating all that's to come. And it's great to have begun. We can start to feel now the shape of the Narthex Gallery. And we just felt like the elements of the former building were so cool, and they were so kind of ancient. And so in portions of the building, you'll see the old brick and old stone. And so in the first floor area, you feel some of those stones. And there's a reliquary down there as well that will house many artifacts and stuff.
Of the psychedelic heroes,
Nice.
I would say.
The Dr. Hoffman.
I was going to say Albert Hoffman has to be in there.
Sasha Shelgin.
And the Tool Shrine.
Yeah.
We have some relics of Tool.
Nice.
Yeah.
So, hey, I think we've got time for a few audience questions. You ready for some of those?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do that.
Gabe, how are we doing with that?
Okay, so the first one here is, let's see, is there a possibility for any events in Europe in the near future?
Let's see. Well, we're going to be in Turkey.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
We're going to be in Turkey. We're going to Turkey. Anyway, I mean, Turkey is a very enlightened Eastern European country. We're going to be over on the European side of Turkey. Thank God. The other side's the Syrian side. It scares me.
Yeah,
But,
as it should.
No, but we decided to go. It's but that's the closest to Europe we've been invited. I mean, you know, we did spend time with a small group in London over the last summer, but you know, hey, we go where called. There's a formula that goes along with that. We love the cities. We love being in Vienna. We love being in Munich. We'd love to be in other European cities. Just you have to produce something and invite us.
There you go.
Okay, so the next one. Can Alex please shortly talk about the God Self painting? Is it connected with a net of being? But what would be the meaning behind it for Alex, of course?
Okay, so the net of being and the God Self, they're both the same space, and they are paintings describing a space that I witnessed during an ayahuasca journey. And the way I interpret this space, which was vastly huge somehow, these heads were mammoth, enormous, and they were glowing with fire. But through them, you could see windows to the cosmos. And so it was just phenomenal, frightening, and infinite. But it was anthropomorphic. And so I felt like, well, this is just symbolizing the infinite state to an anthropic being like myself. If I was from, I don't know, some other galaxy, it would probably appear to them to be more like them. I got that feeling of plasticity to the symbolic resonance that it had, but it took the node of my consciousness, and it's basically said that that God is networked through a node that's infinite, and there are beings that come together as little centers, but they're part of a self-web, that God is a web of distributed consciousness, and we are part of that web. We're a node in that web of souls. So that's kind of what it represents.
So the next one is, how do you feel about digital art? Do you feel that it's as valid as art created by hand and tactile materials?
That's a good question.
Digital is a tool. So there's good digital art and there's bad digital art. Tattooing is a skill. There's good tattooing, there's bad tattooing. There's good painting, there's bad tattooing. I mean, digital art is only as good as the artist who's doing it. And much of it is not good because quality is rare. And that's just the way quality is. It's the creme de la creme. Most of it is schlock. And then there's this really great stuff. If you go to every gallery show every month in New York, you'll notice that there's only a few that are really good. That's pretty typical. It's goodness and quality is rare. So digital art is, yes, a tool, as valid as any other tool, like painting and airbrush. And they're just tools. The artists themselves, though, have to be original and brilliant in their delivery of subject, and and really connect with people and all the things that make art good, or it's no good. It's just digital.
That statement could be across everything, really. Music, writing. It's beautiful.
You have to have a vision. If you don't have a vision, it doesn't matter what medium you're working in.
And a conviction.
There's a very special combination of things that you have to have. A vision is definitely one of them. But Alex's teacher, I remember, said that, some people have lots to say. They are really, powerfully filled with great, important things to say, but no technical skill and not the ability to deliver it in any way, music or art. And then there are people that have incredible technical skill, and we notice this. They are just practiced, and they have an incredible ability, but not much to say, really thin, so it's the combination of things. Having a lot to say, having the right things to say, and having a way of communicating it, and then, developing the technical skill to deliver it, whether it be digital or tattooing or airbrush or a paintbrush.
So it's sort of like developing a language beyond the words you use, because visual art is a language. Do you think?
There you go. I do, yeah.
Music, all of it is a language of communication.
If it is communication, then it goes back to the subject of what are you communicating?
Well said.
And that's the essential question. And so it leads you back to the view that you're going to express prior to the expression of it. And what's the intention of that view? So before any of those kind of literal expressions or a verbal expression even comes out, it has to come from somewhere higher. And the higher you can go, probably the better. you know.
One of my favorite quotes
that's-
well, to relate to what you're saying, one of my favorite quotes is everything started with intent. And that's what you just said, what the intention is of things. But everything starts with intent. And then it spirals outward from that, and on all levels.
Yeah, having a tall stack of skills. I mean, it can look impressive, but...
but even on humanity's evolution, it all starts with intent.
Yep.
Going from primitive man to modern man, and the drawbacks and the pluses. It's all what you're communicating.
I think we can do one more audience question, then we're going to look at a couple of these epic visionary tattoos.
Unless anyone... Okay.
Fantastic.
Gabe?
Well, this one's from Watson from Twine Street.
Watson?
Right.
Legacy is that you stand strong as loving couples. Do you have a favorite historical art couple in the history of arts at large that you admire?
I think our favorite is these guys.
It was great. You guys are great.
Yeah, I think they and Michelle are pretty inspiring.
I'll tell you that today in our community there are some amazing loving couples. David Heskin and Gloria Weaver,
They're great.
work together. They paint together. You know, they've learned to negotiate and figure it out so that their works that they do together is seamless. And I think that your work, you know, that you're in, you know, kind of in business work, separate together. I think that's very important in artist couples, is that, you know, you have your own style, your own work, but you also work together. That's fabulous. That's just a really fun thing. And you know, I think that Frida Kahlo and Diego Rivera were like, just, you know, it's so tumultuous and so awful that you can't use them as a model for anything, you know? I mean, who are our models?
Who are your models? Yeah.
It's hard to find that many
Well, our
examples.
parents stayed together. But they didn't, I mean, our parents stayed together, but we, you know, I mean, I think we alternately emulate some of what they did and deviate entirely from the way they stayed together. So our intention is to transcend, you know, and they would not like nothing better for us than to do that too, because they know how flawed we all are. But anyway, they did a great job of staying together, and you know, and look, it's through thick and thin, don't you think? It's like, you know, you negotiate and you know, you work through stuff. You just become a better person. You transform because you just don't give up on yourself. You don't want to be, you know, you want to be a better person for them.
And then there's the common vision, you know, having that common vision is...
And history. History would be a huge word too. Like all the different times you've spent together and grown. You know, that's huge in terms of how you've developed and what you have to offer.
It's like shorthand, like you don't have to talk as much, you know.
Right.
You already know.
I want to talk a little bit about Omega when we first met you guys. I only knew of Alex's work from seeing a flyer that this strange neighbor we had named Zenon, whose name means strange one, right? Stranger in a strange land. He showed me this flyer of Alex's painting Sacred Mirrors from University of Illinois. And I'd never seen his work before. And then I saw a book that our friend, who's a very visionary person, showed us. And then we heard about the Omega retreat. And then we met Allyson, and we were like, wow, these people are so magnetic and inspiring. And I mean, honestly, I didn't realize like how important that was going to be for us as a couple, young couple, in terms of you guys, you know, for lack of a better word, being a role model. Because we were just so newly into our life, and that was a week before we got married. And now it feels like, now that I'm older and I have more perspective, and I know I have a lot more to grow from that, but I see the significance in that. So to answer Watson's question, it's really cool to have Alex and Allyson as our role model, which I didn't realize back then that would be the case because I was so new to everything, but it's huge. So thank you. I appreciate it.
I think our role models are different than a lot of, we're evolving because in our role models, and I think it's yours too, we are partners, and we're business partners, and we have a lot of respect for each other. We have different strengths, but we can complement each other in our strengths, and I feel that's what you're doing too. You're not like, because we know lots of people, wonderful leaders of communities that, you know, where one is the leader and the other one kind of sits back and nobody's ever heard of them. True. And we're not doing that. You know, we're doing it in a different way.
Yeah,
we're both
Jackson Pollock and Lee Krasner.
Great artists. So,
Salvador Dali and Gala. I like Salvador Dali and Gala. She was really cool. She had like some,
That's
chutzpah.
But you know what? One thing I think.
They were in castles. I mean, that's what everyone should have.
What did she say?
They had castles.
Well, I wasn't going to say that.
But
Chutzpah.
One thing that I think we both have in common as couples is we both are, between ourselves, very different as artists. Michele and I, and you and Allyson, but with many powerful parallels artistically. Michele and I, we feel the same way about composition and contrast and
humanity.
And
humanity.
Well, even just the things that make a beautiful picture, but yet how we go about it is so different. And yet we're able to respect this very different approach and get it, you know what I mean? Because it's coming from someone who we respect that much.
Well, I feel that in our community, in our growing global Love Tribe community, which we have all agreed is going on all over the place, I think that gender balance is going to be a transformative path that will really, really distinguish us as a people. Because we're not just tolerating, if we're going to be radically welcoming and radically fair, we have to have gender balance and we have to always strive for it. It's just something that's completely revolutionary in our world. It hasn't happened.
The world isn't balanced without it.
Right.
So, Allyson and Alex, can you guys pull up the outer space chess piece? We just wanted to show some examples of what we think are really outstanding pieces of visionary art being done on skin.
Yeah.
And we had never heard of Jesse Ricks. This is a person who we discovered because of this tattoo, which is one of the neat things happening with social networking right now, is a person who's got enough of a vision can become known overnight by just making a piece of art and posting it. And back in the day, that wasn't the case. You would have to work a whole lifetime. And this piece is just, I don't know. I'm going to shut up about it. I'd love to hear you guys' feedback.
I like that he integrated the skin, for instance. A very kind of dumb observation, I guess, but when an artist integrates the skin as a tonality of their art and takes advantage of it in a new kind of perspectival way, he's put the viewer at the kind of the center point of the chest as a perspective and drawn one into the now Earth-like galactic or at least cosmic scene within. So they're revealing their cosmic nature, I don't know. I thought it was extraordinary. Great kind of surreal or visionary science fiction kind of work. I've never seen anything exactly like that.
No, we hadn't either. I thought that I got a little bit of Allison's chaos and order out of this. The fragmenting cubes all kind of flying apart. The thing that struck me with this piece, the idea of a tattoo where you can see through the skin into something, people have done that a million times, but he just did it so well in a way that at a glance it grabs you.
I don't know how this ties into the definition of visionary, but when I see it, I think he's saying, like, here I am a surface, but this is who I am really deep within, like I am part of the universe. It's really kind of visually creating this distinction of surface of the human body and beyond that into the more esoteric realms of the existence of everything. So I think that's really deep, and it really says it with this piece. So
my deepest heart is the cosmos itself.
Beyond me, I am the universe. I don't know. That's exactly what it says.
Says it beautifully, though.
It's extraordinary, and in many ways, it's evocative of some of the kinds of things that you've done, Guy, because it shows through the skin. I don't know how many artists were doing that before you did that, but creating windows into another dimension, through certain portals that you would appear deep into the space that you had somehow evoked. I mean, do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's something I've always aimed to do, you know, and I think this is a piece that just is done in a way that anyone who doesn't just hate every tattoo because it's a tattoo could look at and say, I get it, you know.
It's very successful at really creating something very astonishing.
Universally kind of understandable, as you were saying.
Yeah, at a glance. So I'd love to move on to one of those geometry pieces like we were talking about before. Let's take a look at the Brandon Crone images. There's two of them, and actually one of them I thought was great. Michelle pointed out that this guy is standing in the classic sacred mirrors pose with the palms up. And this is something that has just taken off huge in tattooing recently, where people are taking geometry. Often it'll be based off of sacred geometry. You'll see a lot of flower of life patterns and things like that.
And this also really ties into Allyson and her style of painting, like with patterning rather than literal subject matter.
You'll see chaos and order combined all the time, which make great elements next to each other. And often they'll just do it in black, like this. We've seen a few examples in color. But yeah, this is a new thing. It's kind of inspired by old tribal tattoos, but in the last 2 years, this whole new aesthetic has just kind of come out of nowhere. So yeah, again, we'd love to hear a little bit of your feedback.
Look at that. It's so beautiful. That one is such a lacy a garment. And I love the choice of one color. I think it's a great idea, and you know, to cover yourself with, if you really want to cover your skin with beautiful patterns. It's like the way it looks when you're tripping and you look at somebody's skin, you know. I think the shoulder, the arm length, it's very, very black. Do you think that was like a cover-up?
Probably. You'll see that sometimes. People that's the way to deal with it sometimes. And maybe one of them was, and the other one, just to balance it, is just black over nothing, you know. I like how the elbows are opposite of each other. You know, you've got one that's
negative and positive, light and dark.
The exact same shape. And then as you get down to the wrist, you've got those spirals that are cut out in negative, but they've got different patterns behind them. So there's a symmetry versus complementary, like a balance of symmetry and asymmetry that acknowledges the body, acknowledges the need for some kind of attractive balance, but doesn't spend both arms on exactly the same mirror image.
Exactly. It honors the difference and the sameness, which is something that I've seen in your work that makes for a more organic geometry.
Yeah, Michelle does that a lot too. She's got clients that will, 70% of it will be identical on the two sides, and then there will be a 30% of it that maybe is sort of in the center of each one, that there'll be something different featured on each side. So you've got the overall look. You glance at the person from a distance and you see this very obvious balance, and so their body doesn't seem crooked or whatever, but at the same time you get up close and you're not just seeing the same tattoo in a mirror.
That's how nature is when you look at a cluster of flowers or a tree branch. I mean, it's mirroring the same shapes, but they're slightly different, but the overall impression is that it's the same. So I think if you try to control it too much, it looks forced.
So we've got another piece in this sort of same vein by Corey Ferguson. It's another black and gray piece, and this is we were talking about mandalas earlier, and this particular piece has some patterns that I think were probably taken from it.
Moorish architecture.
Yeah, and we were talking earlier about abstraction, and of course, Islamic art. You've got a whole branch of art that is basically forbidden from representational imagery, and so all of their attention has gone into geometry, and of course tattooists have really grabbed onto that and done some really amazing things with it.
Well, I think it's interesting too because as I remember looking at your tattooing kind of redefined and stuff about how geometries and the body don't often get along, and seeing some of the common problems with using a more static kind of form instead of a more flow form. And what I think that the pattern work does is create a flow form with these that, because of the distribution of the sacred geometry into a network of centers over the body in a very natural pattern, it evokes the crystalline kind of ideal patterning that one could imagine over the body and over different forms. And I like how it's often centered in certain central areas. It's going to be in alignment with the frontal line, you know, and so the exact measurements out from one side to another. It's a way of patterning the body that I think is quite extraordinary. I've never seen it before.
You'll see rotational elements sometimes where the arm pivots and that sort of thing. When people really do this right, they are working with both the symmetry and the asymmetry, the static and the movement, a balance of all of those things.
I love it. I think it's amazing. I think it's super visionary, and even if people aren't trying to create a spiritual aesthetic, it creates that just by looking at it, because it honors the divinity of the body, because it is so symmetrical and, as Allyson said, lace-like. And I love that it has mandalas within it, and this is like, I don't know, interweaving quality of connectiveness within the shapes as how they move around the body. I love the symmetry of it. I think it's great. I love it. I think it could go, you know, it could go into color. It doesn't have to necessarily be black work, but I love it as black work too. I just think it's beautiful.
We're thinking that we're actually seeing the beginning of something.
I actually think it's like when people get this work, they're saying it is visionary, whether they realize it or not, because it's opulent and just like it like sizzles when you look at it. You know, it has like a message in it that's just aesthetically profound.
It sizzles in a way that's sort of familiar and
like sacred geometry, like nature geometry. You know, like. Just, I don't know, it speaks, I think that's why it's popular. I think that's why people like it.
So we have one final piece to look at, and this is the 4 images from Marcus Pacheco, and these are all one client. This work was all done on another artist, a fellow named Adrian Lee, and it was all conceived as a single overall bodysuit, which is a very rare thing to see someone really follow through. Now Adrian had the planning and all that other stuff. I think he might have done a little bit of lasering, but he's got an entire body that's just this one unified vision. And gosh, I don't really know what I could say about this. You know, we've known Marcus a long time, and he's definitely...
He's like, in some ways, I just want to add that he's similar to Guy. He was like on the scene early and created an aesthetic that a lot of people have been influenced by heavily. And he's brilliant, and he's unique, and he's sincere. And his artwork is amazing. He's a great painter, and I think his art is very visionary.
Marcus is one of the people who is responsible for why tattooing is awesome today, and he keeps sort of a low profile these days. But these are paintings on skin. They're, you know, he made these figures as large as he could get away with on the human body without them distorting too much, and then did them with these massive blocky planes of color in a way that you know, you could read this from across the street, and it's just so massively powerful.
And then the subject matter itself is all about the human existence and birth and life and death and spirituality.
It's the whole shebang.
Yeah, it really. I don't know if you guys can have good pictures, but it's really intense.
They've got the same pictures here.
Okay.
So I'll shut up now.
Yeah.
We'd love to hear your
That's all we
feedback.
have to say about it. That's all. You know, a few things.
Wow. Well, one of the things I love about it is how there is very distinct and almost tribal-like patterning, striping almost of image, and then total clarity of skin. And that pre-planning you know, goes a long way in sort of like plotting out these kind of areas and leaving skin as canals of space in a very deliberate fashion throughout. And so, and also then the kind of metaphysical reach, that one would attempt with the try to get the whole shebang onto the body is a great visionary quest in itself of the collector and of the artist to try to plan that. So I applaud all of these elements, and it looks like a brilliant execution, of a quite extraordinary image. And I see some eyes and some X-rays too, and a lot of the kind of skull and tribal, but in another translucent and obviously quite visionary and lit up kind of way. So it's windows to the symbols of the soul.
Well, thanks for taking some time to look at these images with us and giving feedback. It's, I mean, we're very, very proud of what our community has accomplished since we've gotten into the scene. I've been at it 26 years now, and it's gone from being something that was just sort of limping along into being this exploding Renaissance art form. And of course it feeds from all the other art going on, and what you guys are doing has been part of what is feeding
Absolutely.
tattooing. And so on behalf of our whole community, we say thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for including us on the program.
So on that note, if people want to be part of or supportive of your Entheon project, how can they do that?
Well, go to cosm.org, cosm.org, and there's a little Entheon banner there. Just click the banner and learn something about the project. It's our sanctuary of visionary art that's now under construction, and we do need support from community that feels inspired and would like to contribute something, or check out the store. And benefits go to the support the building of Entheon. So it's any of these are great ways to support, and we feel really honored that you've included us in the kind of visionary dialogues, and that your community has grown so greatly, and thank you for including us. Really, I feel inspired by all our new offerings. Thank you for sharing the new wave of tattooing and sacred geometry that's sweeping there. We're excited that Entheon has begun, and people can check out the progress also online, or just sign up on Instagram. Alex Grey Cosm, Allyson Grey Cosm.
We have a painting intensive coming up this summer. There's only 14 spaces in it. For the first time, we're reviewing portfolios
Wow.
for the painting intensive, which is very exciting. And that takes place in our studio over the summer. If we have a classroom by this summer, we'll have more intensives and more classes. But Amanda will be teaching there. Randall has a spot. Chris Dyer was just there. He's going to be teaching. So we have a lot of great art educators there, and great painters that just sharing their techniques. And we'll be teaching at Omega again for the 25th year, I believe, or maybe this is 26. I can't remember anymore. But the class is like gold. It's like crystal now, and it's got spin-offs and everything galore. But this I think is the gem, is the Omega class, because we've taught it so many years. It has so many. It's about access to visions and how to get your visions out onto the paper into the second quadrant. You know, how do you get these images down? How do you have the images? How do you get them in there? And then how do you get them out of there? So anyway, and then how do you get them out into the world? We talk a lot about that, about the, you know, being an artist and how you can have art as a spiritual path or art as a right livelihood. In all of those spectrums. So it's been a great thing, and yeah. So we'll have the painting intensive at Casa. That's the only one.
I'd love to say to listeners that the Omega class, and Michelle and I have been there a couple of times. Please go if you get a chance. It is immersive. It is transformative. Yes, it's all of these things. It's so far beyond just an art class, and it's the kind of thing that you could only do in a setting like that with people like this who have got this much
history,
soul and character and history and depth. And treat yourself when you've got the chance.
Because you can bring it back into your artwork, and it's something that will always be with you.
The inspiration we've gotten from our workshops with the Greys, it's never faded.
It's never been a wasted minute.
Well, have you been doing the retreat again, or have you been?
We've got that coming up. We're doing that again in end of March, beginning of April of this year, and yeah, I mean it's a little more challenging for us now because we're juggling around a kid that doesn't sit still. But yeah, we're gearing up for that one, and excited about the possibility.
One thing I want to add is when we worked with you guys last at the Paradise Artist Retreat, when we did the what was it called, the Body Spirit Mind class, or what was the class called?
What was the title of that? It was similar to the Omega class.
It could have been Body and Soul.
Body and Soul.
Yep.
Okay. Everyone who took that class told us it was a life-changing experience, and they had goosebumps on their skin. And that was huge. Like, made me proud to be part of that, and I remember feeling that too. So
we had people in tears.
Yeah.
Rough-looking dudes.
Rough-looking dudes with tattoos, like cathartically expressing the light within. It was huge.
So we are very, very honored to be bringing that particular experience to many cities that we've been to, and we're going to be doing it in Mexico next. We'll be doing it in Mexico next. So I think, you know, it's great to go like to other places and do that same sort of exercise, and it's always different. It always feels different. It's always, you know, it's fabulous. We love it. So yes, come to the Omega class. It's incredible. It's gotten even better. Did we have the 5 minutes of fame when you were there? I don't think we had the 5 minutes of fame. We've been doing that for years. So that's where everybody gets 5 minutes to make a presentation.
Oh, wow.
It's an elevator speech. It's very,
cool.
very wonderful.
Nice.
Some people just prepared the year before and bringing it on video. The 5 minute thing. Do a 5 minutes of your art.
That's cool.
So anyway, it's been good. Yeah. It's a great experience.
Well, yeah. You're a great experience.
You are a great experience.
You're a great experience. Yeah. Thanks.
Well, thanks for joining us this evening.
And thanks for going 40 minutes overtime with us. That's been wonderful.
We hope to see you guys again.
Thank you to everyone who's tuned in for this and for the great audience questions. And I also wanted to thank the 4 artists who submitted work to be reviewed tonight.
Thank you. We are inspired, and now, you know, tattooing is continuing to evolve, and we can see for ourselves. So thanks for that, you guys.
Art is evolving everywhere. It's pretty awesome to be part of it.
Love you.
Love you guys too. It's been too long. We'll see you again soon.
Yeah, same to you guys.
All right. And good night to everyone.